to help in feeding these children. This video explains the why and what of politics. Why do we need to help this girl? And what do we need to do to help this girl? Not girl, she's a woman. For children, she's a woman. And the other videos I had, pictures I had, one is of agriculture. Since I was born, I have seen people using a hoe as a basic instrument of production. And I believe when I die, possibly, unless you create that change, we may still be using the same hoe. What is life about? Life is about you enjoying the highest standard of living that you can give yourself. And who is responsible? It's you, not government, it's you. Are you capable of doing it? Maybe yes, maybe not. So when I talk about the whole, look at what is happening in the developed countries. They're using drones for agriculture, combined harvest cards for agriculture. If you have less than 10 acres in this country to do agriculture, I'm sorry, you're wasting your time. I'll give you some statistics also. I don't necessarily agree with the ones I saw in the budget last week, which said 16% of Ugandans are poor. And I think, let me give you an indication of poverty in this country. If you go to the Ministry of Education website, they're going to give you the number of children joining P1. The number of children joining P1. If you go back to 2007, that number may have been about 1.4 million. This year, possibly is about 2.7 million. Now, only 30% of those children who join P1 are able to finish P7. Only 30%. The rest simply drop out. The question is, what are they doing? So simply add up that figure from 2007 to today. Just if 1 million people have been dropping out, how many people are those? In the last 18 years or so, maybe 18 million people. They're all poor. They're all poor. What are these girls impregnated by boys who are 14, 15 years old? They're giving birth, not to babies, to poverty. So when you talk about 16% of the population being poor, there's a problem. Because already that 18 million people out of the 45 are poor. And it is an understatement. 2, 70% of our people live off agriculture, subsistence farming. So that component of production is not within monetized GDP. Those people are poor. 80% of our people live in rural areas. They don't have access to electricity. I think right now, if I'm not mistaken, access to electricity is about 22%. And we don't use it. We don't use it for cooking, it's very expensive. Now, of the 22% who have access to electricity, in mainly urban areas, out of that 22, about 18% live in slums. Now, these are figures. This is poverty I'm talking about. And you are wrong as politicians, is to support the transformation of these people. That is why politics. How can we, as people who want to serve others, help in the transformation of society? That's real leadership. Leaders empower people, leaders inspire people, leaders create change in people from poverty to a good standard of living. That is why you are seeking this political office. So, if you go back into history, oh, this thing has come up. If you go back in history, you'll find that before the British came here, very wonderful society. Indeed, we did, given the economic environment that we have. So what do? They come in here and they take over. 1900, British sign an agreement with Uganda, which takes away Uganda as authority. If you don't know, I was telling you, please bottle up your sentiments, because these are facts. They took away the authority of the kind of the king in 1900. 1903, they introduced coffee and cotton because they were having a problem. How can we tax? How can the peasants contribute to development? And 1926, we have the Uganda Railway come up and the Indians show up. And what happens? In the 1945, Ignatius Musazi goes on the streets of Kampala, riots in Kampala. I want you to understand these riots from two perspectives. Again, please vote on your sentiment. Amin rioted in 1972. You will riot in the coming years over the same issue. What was YDE rioting about? He was saying, allow Africans into business. Remove that preference you are giving to the Indian community to have to be the only people who can sell things. So go and read about the Uganda riots led by YDE Musazi. And what did the British say? He's a communist. You know, the easiest way to silence people is to give them names, which the public will accept. So, YDE Musazi struggles, and let's remember him. I think he's a nationalist. He's the only person lying in Colorado. I hope that. I don't know whether any one of you will ever be put there, whether you'll be nationalist enough to be buried in the Colorado grounds. So, what was happening then? Africans were not in business. What was the role of the colonial government? To enrich Britain. Because the history of slave trade was take slaves, take these poor people, let them go and work free. When this stopped, there was colonialism. Now go in there, manage their countries, take out the resources, don't let them become wealthy. So the politicians who were aware of what was taking place decided to fight for independence. Kwame Nkrumah, Nyerere, all these people, including YDE Musazi, who in 1952 launched the Uganda National Congress. In 1954, Chwanka launched the Democratic Party, and these are our problems. You as young people, these are our problems, and I was telling you, bottle up your sentiments if you want to understand the issues on the ground. Why was the Democratic Party established? To take care of the interests of the Catholic community. Why? Because the British, they did a wonderful job. All the kings in this country are Anglican. I was a Katuku Soga one time when the other Chamazinga was about to die. And the most eligible person on the castle, so I told him, unfortunately you can't be Chamazinga because in the church in Uganda, there is a seat in the Anglican church for the Chamazinga. So you can't, a Catholic, you can't go and sit there. These are realities. You may sweep them under the carpet. So, what joins the fray in the struggle for independence? And the British were a bit naive. They ordered for the first elections in Uganda for self-governance. And guess who won? DP won. And they were angry. They were angry. Now you are going to read British books and history, so you don't find this in that history. It's not written anywhere. But when Dictator was first prime minister, and what happened? They got so angry that they arranged the independence elections. They were forced. And during that election, Kabaka did not participate. KY did not participate. So the British arranged a conference in London where the KY and UPC could come together, and I believe these two were Anglicans. And they came together and they won the elections. Now, some of the historical issues is that Uganda had a wonderful administrative system, which up to date we have adopted, the SAZA, the county, and all that. Very good system. But the mistake that the British did was make him a president of Uganda. I'm going to say something, please don't hate me for that. Because of that, Uganda cannot give us a president. Uganda cannot give us a president for the following reasons. One, if you're Uganda, you can never be above the cover. So how can you be a president of Uganda?
That's right.
You are young people, you are looking at where you want to go. And I tell you, that is not possible. Two, if you are to have elections in this country, the majority of people in this country are Catholics. The British locked the Catholics out of the administrative system deliberately. In 1962, the Catholic schools produced more students, but they didn't enter Makerere. Go to the figures. They didn't enter Makerere as long as the British were controlling the entrance into Makerere. These are the foundations for the political system you are born to. So if you had free and fair elections in this country, the Catholics will win it. Because our politics, and this is where I want you to go, the issue of ideology, our politics is still based on religion. Unfortunately, boy, these are difficult things to say, but I'll say. When Milton Obote abolished the kingdoms, the Baganda were angry, and they will never forgive him. Never. So the reality is that that the Baganda and the Acholis and Landis will work together. The Baganda have the majority Catholics, the Acholis have the majority Catholics. Together, they'll win an election driven by religion. But they can't come together. So, they cannot. Fast forward, you can see what's taking place around the country. Fast forward is for you to make the decision of what I'm saying. So, something I've not talked about is the issue of ideology. When YK Musazi was leading riots, he was called a communist. He was labeled the what of politics. The why we know we want to transform people's lives, but how do we do it? How we do it is an issue of ideology. The British locked Africans out of business. So, 1962, go and read the World Bank report, which advised the post-independence government on the future of Uganda. That planning report, written by the Planning Commission, if you got the first 5-year development plan, Prime Minister Obote says, we have accepted and adopted the recommendation of the Planning Commission and the World Bank. The World Bank said, Africans should be in backyard industries, we Asians in trade. The what of politics. So we get into somehow, very interestingly, World War II was won by those countries, including Britain. At that time, the Labour Party was ruling in Britain. The Labour Party is socialistic leaning. It has emphasis on the private sector, on the public sector. It had more public enterprises. So the Labour Party, in the various countries where Britain ruled, they went out to establish public enterprises. And in 1952, the Uganda Development Corporation was established in Uganda with a mandate to spearhead industrial, commercial and agricultural development. The UDC grew very, very much because of the vacuum. But who else grew? The Indian community. It's a privilege for me to sit on my board. Business. By the time 1971, when the Indians left, the Madivani establishment contributed 10% of Uganda's tax revenue. That's how big they are. That's how big they are. So, the issues of ideology, or what African countries to fight independence went to the socialist countries. They did not necessarily understand what the ideology meant. They were simply looking at somebody who can help them. So the Western countries saw these African politicians as socialists. So when Obote accepts the recommendation of the World Bank in 1962, he's accepting capitalism as the philosophy, as the ideology of Uganda. However, Obote, influenced by his colleagues, Nyerere, Kaunda, and other people in the region, and the problems that were coming up in South Africa and Rhodesia, they decided that to be able to get independence, you needed the socialist countries to support you. So, when Obote fails to work with Mutesa, he kicks out Mutesa. Sorry, the Uganda, what I'm going to say is very interesting. That was the first step democratization in this country, but it failed. Because in 1993, the NRM brought back kingdoms. I support the Chawazinga very much. But if you want democracy, these institutions should not be like where they are. India had kingdoms. It managed them. You know that here about kings in India. Can we learn from them? They can only be managed by the state. And we're not doing a very good job at it. Because when they shout, we listen. Then we also press them. So please, if you're in Uganda, Musoga, whatever it is, I'm telling you, if you want democracy in this country, forget about kingdoms. The way they were originally, there's nothing wrong in recognizing these people, in supporting them, in ensuring that they are able to live the way they live. My good friend, the late Prof.Wasswa, always raised the Uganda question. And my mentor, the right Honorable Musoke, would say, how about the Karamoja question? I pay tribute to that gentleman, because what you see coming from me is partly a problem. I'm a student. Radical Uganda who believe that the only way you're going to transform this country is through democratic means. But democracy does not work with kingdoms, because kingdoms are hereditary. So there is a lot of confusion in our minds, we who come from kingdom areas. I must support the Chawazinga, but then how can I support democracy? The two won't work. So, when Obote got rid of Mutesa, in 1967, the Arusha Declaration, Nyerere announces that Tanzania is going to be socialist. It was popular. 1969, President Obote, the move to the left, Common Man's Charter, he announces this country is going to be socialist. The only reason, valid reason why Obote was overthrown was because of that. Nothing else. He's overthrown because he had nationalized companies. So, fast forward, 1983, when Obote comes back here, what did he do? 1981, he had a recovery program. 1982, he did what was known as the revised recovery program, introducing free market economics in the country. 1983, the Departed Agents Something Act to return the properties of Indian to them. But Idi Amin had not paid them, by the way. Because now he didn't want to live. He didn't want to live. You live, you get rid of free market economics, you live. And there's evidence. Sankara left. Kwame Nkrumah was overthrown. Patrice Lumumba died. Magufuli died. Regime changed. That's how powerful the Western countries have been. So, Idi Amin had a wonderful cabinet, wonderful policies which he never implemented. So that time, we see Uganda's economy, by 1979, the economy had declined by 25%. By 1986, 85, when Seven came to power, it had further declined by another 7%. So, what do we have? 1981, we have the DP, Catholic, and the UPC, Anglican, and my party, UPM. We were subsidiary UPC. I'm telling you, nobody is going to give you this information. So NRM had no basis because it had no religious background. So you're establishing a party today. Without a religious base, you have a problem. Because our country is still based on religion. I am a Muslim. And when Muhammad Mayanja wanted to become president of this country, my discussion with the intellectual Muslim, they said, where is your base? Sorry, I can't support you. I can only support NRM of 7 because he is my man. So, this one is a bad Muslim, whatnot. To me, my assessment was, you cannot have a base sufficient enough for you to have a political party. So, remember, we are focusing on democracy. That's our main tool. So, if Obote comes back, is elected, and at that time the issue was DP, UPC. We in the other party were the one vote, Kionga, one MP was elected. And if we continue with religious politics, don't be surprised if NRM turns back into UPC party. We are looking at the future, 20 years of multi-party politics. That's where we will go, unless if you manage it properly. Unless if you base your politics on ideology, or the what. So, Museveni comes with a 10-point program. And point number 10 is about public enterprises. And he does a wonderful job trying to sell goods on barter trade. But how can you challenge the dollar? Who are you? Barter trade worked. If you go to the records, they will tell you it didn't work. Because whose records are reading? Whom are we listening to? You see, when you look at a trade, you are eliminating the dollar. And global trade is in the dollar. That's why right now with BRICS, the issues are coming up. Can we kill the dollar? It's not going to go for some time, but it will. It will, because the power has shifted. So, Museveni comes as a socialist. Very difficult statement I'm going to make again. Forgive me. And they bring Lakwena. Who brought Lakwena? The people who thought Museveni was a socialist. Uganda has always supported the black South Sudan, what you call South Sudan today. So it was very easy when you want to fight Museveni, go to the north and tell that, was it called Bashir at that time? Tell him, go let our goods, our arms to Labeni, to fight this man who is a socialist. And check the records. In May 1987, President Museveni himself stood on the dais like this and read the change in the economic policy. He moved away from socialism to capitalism. 1987, May 1987, he did this. And he's still president. You know, this, my son, Magezi, this Maha, is here. He wants to be president. Magezi can stand up and wave there. They see this. He's trying to learn politics. So, you don't worry about him. He's not going to contest with himself. He wants to be known. Now you know him. So 15 years later on, he's going to be hot. So, what was the issue now? The issue in the background has been ideology. Seven coming in as socialism, experimenting with socialism, and he burned his fingers, and today he's converted. Now and again, the socialism comes up. Now and again. But he knows it won't work. Not in the environment we're working in. So, you who are aspiring to be politicians, these are the schools in this country. And your role is to support the transformation of these schools. That is Kampala parents. You know? That's where possibly some of you went. Me, I can't complain. I am from a privileged class. I can't complain. Yes. That is what you are aspiring to do. How do we get our people out of that? How do you get them out of that? It ended? I thought I had some more questions there. So, what is democracy without ideology? If you go back into history, Uganda's history, when NRM, when President Museveni opened up the political space, and we had, I think at that time, Kawaga stand against him. You go back and look at the manifestos of all the political parties, because that is where the what is. The only person who wrote substantively was this musician, what's his name? Semple was, what's his name? He wanted to be president or something. He's the only person who has a different manifesto. The rest of the manifestos are the same. So what are you talking about? What power are you struggling for? The essence of seeking political power is for you to be able to contribute the transformation of society. For you to be able to give your people a higher standard of living than what they have. For you to be able to provide an enabling atmosphere for people to act. For the entrepreneurs to pursue business. For the teachers to teach. For the rest of the community in the world to be able to do what they feel is best for them. And that is what we've called ideology. How to govern the state. How should we govern people? And essentially, it's about economic policy. What are the economic policies we put in place? And the struggle has been between free market economics, as advocated by Adam Smith and the rest of the economists, and socialism, where the state has an important role to play. So the world has been split on those two. The Labour Party is on the socialist, the Conservative Party is on the right. The Republicans are on the right, the Democrats are on the left. But in the Western countries, they agree that yes, it is important to have the individual to determine what they want to do. The difference in them is emphasis. If you go to the Scandinavian countries, they are capitalist. But what do? To remove inequalities, they tax. That's taxation. The conservatives will say less tax. The socialists will say tax people more so that you can give others a better standard of living. So for you as young people who are looking at democracy today, you are saying, how should we govern ourselves as a country? How should we govern ourselves? Should we have more emphasis on the state playing an important role or less? The current economic policies are the state should not play a very important role in the economy. That's our current state. The economic policy that we operate in is a free market economy. And after 1987, things happened. I was part of those committees which recommended the dismantling of the private public sector. Sell them. We sold them. Today, I think there are a few public enterprises left. Maybe National Water, Balunywa Social Services. The defense has its own industries, but we can't call them. We don't know what happens there, but they're working very well. And I don't know which else is out there working in the public sector as a public enterprise for profit. The majority of our public enterprises are regulatory in nature. So we opened up the economy. There used to be one radio, there now I don't know how many there, 300. There used to be one UTV, which would open at 6 and close at 11. Today you have a 24-hour TV. I don't know, you have Netflix today. All this is a result of the private sector. Today, whatever you're seeing is a result of the effort of the private sector. So it is true, the private sector, the incentive in the private sector is so much that you will see transformation in the private sector, in society. The problem is the dark side. When you go to countries like UK and USA where you have that pure capitalism, it creates an underclass. I'm sure you have a relative who is in the UK and works for 18 hours a day, 20 hours a day for the capitalist. That is the problem with capitalism. So President Museveni opens up the economy and says, you guys come do business. And indeed they can, not Ugandans, the Indians and the Chinese and the rest of them. Because they are more exposed to entrepreneurship. Uganda is one of the most entrepreneurial countries in the world, by the way. 30% of Ugandans would be in business. But guess the type of business we are in, what a problem. I'm sure you will be using AI today. That's where the business is. That's where the future is. But we are good. So, when Museveni fails to find the Africans, he goes out. You can't blame him. The riots of the 1940s, the Idi Amin of 1972 is going to happen in you. I have not mentioned reasons, you know what I'm talking about. So you, as young aspirants to leadership who are seeking to transform this society must understand that when you are struggling for power, you are struggling for power so that your ideas are superior to whatever ideas are being presented by other people. You are so lucky that all these ideas have been tested. And we know how they work. And we know the consequences of these ideas. The question is whether you know them, whether you understand them. We should move away from politics of religion to politics of ideas. Move away from politics of tribe to politics of ideas. We are looking at social economic transformation. We want to see how our society can change. We want to see how the ordinary person can enjoy a higher standard of living. And which are those ideas that will create that? That is what you should aspire to have. So, religion and tribe has no role in democracy. So as long as we have our democracy based on these aspects of sectarianism, I'm sorry. This country is not about to transform. How can we get the 70% of people in agricultural production out of agriculture? Because the figures indicate that the people in agriculture in the developed countries range between 2 to 5%. But we have 70%. That is your task. How do you do that? How do you ensure that this 70% of the people who are getting P1 actually complete P7? My right audience, I have been advocating for the abolition of PLE. And thank God, I think now it was stated recently. There was a lot of effort to get there. I am also advocating for the abolition of senior for exams. You know, when I said this, somebody said, okay, but how does somebody join secondary? I said, so what? What for? Why do you have PLE? Give me an answer. You will say as a basis for joining secondary. It's not necessary. These are methods of holding you back. What we need is to be able to bring our children from whatever age, 6, 7 to age 18 in school. There will be no transformation in this country unless if those people stay in school. As long as they are out of school, I'm very sorry, my young people. No development is going to take place here. Because even not reaching P7, what can you do other than whatever? What can you do? You go back to agriculture. So join me in advocating for an external examination fee education environment. Join P1 up to P4, whatever name you want to call it. When you are at home, your parents give you some skills. I'm sure we have enough researchers in this country to be able to tell us what are the skills you should give to people at different levels in the education system. True, we have brought a new scheme. I don't know how it is working because some schools are saying they don't have the facilities to make it work. But we must reform education. We must put emphasis on science and education and technology. as long as 70% of people are in agriculture using a hoe, you will not compete with anybody. You will not be able to sell anything anywhere. You will not be able to transform this society. So all this depends on whether you are able to bring science and technology into the house of every Ugandan, so that you can get out of agriculture. As technology changes, we are at the risk of one day somebody telling us that, you see, you can no longer grow maize. It's being manufactured in a factory somewhere. I'm sure you've seen rice manufactured in a factory somewhere. So it may be cheaper for us to buy the maize from some other place. So friends, we have been able to see what we have done in the last 20 years, the transformation that we are seeing in terms of democracy. My personal feeling is that we're not yet there. We're not yet there because when I look at the manifestos, the people seeking power, nobody is saying something different. Nobody is saying something different. We should hold our elections based on ideology, not tribe, not religion. So, the people who have just come in may not know where we came from. I requested people what were their sentiments, religious and tribal, so that I can speak out and don't hold you responsible for what I've said. Just try to verify it. So going ahead, what is going to happen in the coming elections? What is going to happen in the coming elections? I'm not a fortune teller, but I believe that the elections, especially in Uganda, will be based on two sentiments, or four: tribe, religion, youth, and the popularity of the candidates. Not the platform to transform people. The recent election in Colombia is a very good example. Tell me of any ideas that came out of the candidates on improving the life of people in Colombia. Nothing. So, as you watch out for the election manifestos of the different parties, watch out. I mean, this is a prime time to look at what are the different parties saying in terms of the ideology, how to manage society, how are we going to cause this transformation. I don't think you're going to see something. So you as young people aspiring to lead this country ahead, look for people who think like you, who have ideas like you, of how we can transform society. But you're a very difficult task, because the foundation we have laid is a foundation of tribalism, a foundation of religion. To break that requires leaders who are willing to sacrifice. If you're willing to sacrifice that, go out there and sing about it. But why are people seeking parliament, MPs, to get a car? They earn 30 million plus allowances, that's what I want to get. And they get in there, one term they're out, or two terms they're out, and that's the end of them. I've not seen a politician come out to talk about This is my program to transform my people. But there are beautiful posters around telling us about, I want to be elected an MP. I want to be elected a mayor. So friends, I want to conclude by saying, the last 20 years of democracy in this country have no important lessons for you and for me. If there are lessons of tribe, religion, money, enrichment, so we need to break that. We need to break that by creating a society which is based on ideas rather than society based on religion. Thank you very much for listening.